Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Louisville. I'm Marshall Stuckliff in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen, and we've got a winning in here. Kids, get your glass of water. You're not going to want to leave. William Huey Jensen on the right-hand side playing Esper. This is for the top 8 of this tournament. The last time I covered Huey at a GP, he won it. That was in Grand Prix Oakland. That was limited. And
that was limited.
Now he's playing standard here. Now, on the other side of the table, though, Todd Anderson with a deck that he designed. It's a mono-black devotion deck. Very innovative, very sweet. We saw a version of this at the Pro Tour. He's changed around a few things and has done really well with it. Also putting Brad Nelson into the top 8 of this event, as we assume that he's going to be able to draw in here this round.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable that this deck has come out of nowhere and become such a force in the format. It really can get run over by the most aggressive strategies, but decks like Green-White and decks like Mono-Red have really fallen off the radar. And if you're coming into a Grand Prix with 3 buys, when you're expecting to see a ton of Esper and other Devotion decks, this Mono-Black Devotion deck has to be the choice.
Okay. So early game plays here. Todd Anderson runs a pack rat out there. Divination for Huey. So he is wide open here. And interestingly, a second pack rat here. He's going to activate his Mutavault with his Mutavault. That is going to make the pack rat into a 3/3. And he's going to battle. Oh, detentions here, though, for Huey. Takes both pack rats out at the same time. And what is the recovery play here for Todd Anderson? Looks like he's got an Erebos, which is
pretty nice one.
Not too bad. Would he rather have a Desecration Demon? Yes, he would. Desecration Demon hits the battlefield here and keeps the pressure flowing. Let's see if Huey has an answer to that 6/6 flying demon here. He's not going to have too many creatures available as the deck doesn't run very many, so he's going to have to deal with it other ways. Kill it, destroy all creatures, put it back on top of the library, something like that.
Yeah, it's going to pound in here for 6 damage.
Wow, so it's going to hit for 6. And here's an Erebos as well. And Sphinx's Revelation for 2. Now, remember, that's going to be in response, though, to the Erebos, so that Huey can actually gain the life from it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to gain any life. So, if you're in Todd Anderson's seat and you see William Jensen fire off that Sphinx's Revelation for just 2, you're pretty happy?
I'd say you're reasonably happy.
Okay.
I mean, you've got your God on the table, you've got some pressure going, and it's definitely not the worst spot to be in. Here he gets to crack in for 2 at that Mutavault. It's to be aggressive with those lands. And on Huey's end step, he's going to get to draw an extra 2 cards thanks to Erebos, God of the Dead.
That's pretty sweet.
Very sweet.
It's a big problem for Huey as well, as he doesn't want to fall too far behind in the card race here.
And I mean, Huey, picked up a 2-for-1 with the Detention Sphere, picked up a 2-for-1 with Divination, picked up a 2-for-1 with Sphinx's Revelation. He's not having any sort of issue in terms of cards, but Todd is going to draw 2 cards in Huey's end step, looking to have double removal spell to deal with this Aetherling, but it looks like that's not going to happen for him.
So this could actually get kind of ugly here for Todd.
Yeah, I mean, Huey's going to untap with this Aetherling, and then
2 turns?
There's just not much that Todd can do.
Todd has a Thoughtseize in hand, which he's looking to play here to kick things off. He's got to survey the scene. He's also got a Gray Merchant in his hand, which can help bolster his life total a bit. But Thoughtseize first, and he sees land, Doomblade, land. So we can see why Huey just ran out his Aetherling here. He's got the 1 mana to protect it, but he doesn't really have the luxury of just hanging around here. He's going to fall behind too far, so he's just like, well, this is what we got going. We're going to run it.
He needs to win in the only way it's possible for him to win. And right now it seems like that's just playing an Aetherling and cracking for 8 each turn.
Right, here's a Scry from a Temple of Deceit for Todd Anderson, and he's going to keep that one back on top and play a Gray Merchant. 1, 2, 3. So drain you for 3 and pass the turn back. All right, so let's see if Huey can find something to help him off the top of the deck. Well, he found a dissolve. Not the worst possible draw.
Definitely not the worst possible draw.
And remember, he's got a few temples in hand, so even though it looked kind of it looked a little grim there with him having all of those lands, he does get to start scrying through a bit. Thoughtseize off the top here is going to get dissolved because, well, it's going to take the dissolve anyway, so he might as well get a scry out of the deal. This does, though, prevent Todd from losing the 2 life from Thoughtseize. And battle mode, everybody into the red zone, and that's going to do it.
Yep.
Huey Jensen with a handshake, the rare game 1 handshake there. No, they're going to ID. Rashad, they ID'd. So this happens. Can you talk to us a little bit about
Okay, so sometimes
delicately?
Sometimes when 2 Magic players love each other very much.
I was going to say, I feel like I'm getting a speech from my dad here. JBL just turned into my father somehow.
They'll be playing in a match, and they'll be playing for top 8. And there might be a very strong chance that both of them can make the top 8 with a draw, but one of them is not 100% sure if they're going to be able to do that, while the other one is 100% sure that if they get the draw, they're in the top 8. The player who is not 100% sure will become significantly more inclined to take that draw after they lose the first game.
I see.
Then they're going to need to win 2 games, one of which they're going to be on the draw. In this case, it's that Huey was going to need going to need to win 2 games
Against a tough matchup.
in a nearly unwinnable post-board matchup.
Okay.
He'd much rather just
Take his
roll the
chance.
dice with the tiebreakers and go for it.
Okay. So let's jump over to our other match here, where we have a detention sphere hitting 2 Colonian Tuskers. So this must be John Stern on the left, as he's the only one near the top tables that I'm aware of who's playing Colonian Tusker. And it looks like he is playing against Alexander John. These players are both on 36, so this is a top 8, a win and in for the top 8 here.
Yeah, the winner of this match will certainly be in the top 8 of this tournament.
Things look pretty decent here if you're an Alexander John fan here, as he's got a Jace Architect of Thought on a completely empty board with an opponent with no cards in hand, and he looks like he's got, well, 3, 4, 5 cards in hand himself. So, maybe he's got the full 7. So this not looking great. I'm assuming this is still game 1 here, though, for John Stern. Yeah, it looks like it is.
And from the looks of it, John is at 20 and Alex is at 9. That's correct.
Yeah, it's probably the other way. Right.
Yeah, one would assume that it's probably the other way.
Yeah. But Elspeth hitting the battlefield is going to make short work of John Stern here either way. Even if he's at 20, he's going to be able to the game's going to get taken over quite quickly here by these tokens and the Planeswalker creating them.
Jason and Elspeth love to hang out.
Oh, they are.
Those are like some of my favorite people to hang out with.
Reunited.
Elspeth
and,
and Jace.
So good.
Yeah.
All right, Jace ticks up. Elspeth ticks up as well, putting her at 6 loyalty. Just as importantly, creating 3 soldier tokens here. So 1 card in hand for John Stern. And he has an end step play. It's a Boon Satyr, but it's kind of a sad Boon Satyr here.
Yeah. This Boon Satyr is looking pretty unexciting at this point.
Yeah, it really is.
It's just going to trade with 2/3 of a loyalty counter from that Elspeth.
Ouch.
Not where you want to be.
But John does in fact make that trade. And he follows up with a Domri raid. Does it resolve? His first order of business. Absolutely not.
That's
Dissolves instead. And again, John Alexander's just completely in the driver's seat here. It's hard to imagine a scenario that he doesn't win this game. But we get to play a couple more. Or up to a couple more, I should say.
Elspeth going to get to jump up to 7 counters. And that's going to give him access to the Elspeth ultimate ability. Following turn.
Still have a Jace activation in his pocket here as well. He's going to go ahead and scry with his land first. Then he's going to move over and -2 Jace to just keep the train wreck. Oh, look at this. Not too bad, and it looks like John Stern's seen enough for that first round, so he's going to, or excuse me, for that first game, so he's going to grab his Tuskers back and get back to business here of sideboarding.
Yeah, I mean, John Stern probably thinking that there's some chance that maybe he can draw a dragon and hope that his opponent just has absolutely nothing on the end there. But once your opponent shows you that Jace flip, you know that it's all over.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to have that in his hand right now, and that's going to end it. Take a look at our upcoming webcast schedule. For those of you who love to watch Magic, we're going to be bringing you a bunch in the next coming months here. It's Grand Prix Antwerp, which is modern. I love that format. October 26th and 27th. Rich and the European crew is going to be bringing that to you guys live.
Big Z will be there.
Big Z, yep.
Recent top 16 Pro Tour competitor.
Yep.
Pretty impressive stuff.
Very impressive. Grand Prix Valencia is Theros Limited. That's November 9th and 10th. Again, our European coverage team covering that one. GPDC, as we like to call it here, is Legacy. For you Legacy fans out there, you know, there's not too many Legacy GPs in a year. Usually two-ish in a given continent. And this is the big one for the fans of Legacy, November 16th and 17th. I'm going to be there. It's going to be sweet. Grand Prix Albuquerque is standard, November 23rd and 24th.
Will you be there also?
Yeah.
We've got actually.
You will too?
Yeah, I'm doing coverage there.
Text?
I don't remember.
I think you're doing text.
Okay, well that would make sense.
I don't want to say who else is going to be there because I don't know if I'm allowed to yet. But we've got a pretty sweet lineup of coverage people at that one, so that should be fun.
Oh, what? And I'm not part of a sweet coverage?
No,
team?
I was
Come
including
on.
you.
No, I'm joking.
You're
I'm
on
joking,
the
I'm
coverage
joking.
team. I need you to calm down. Grand Prix Vienna, also standard, November 30th through December 1st. Rich is now asking me, is that the one with the guy and the stuff and the thing? And our last one, Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth, is also standard. That's December 7th and 8th, and that'll take us through to the end of the year, I believe, there. So make sure you join us. We'd love to have you along, watching at home, watching with us as we watch our favorite game unfold in front of us many, many weekends of the year. This particular one is standard. We're in Louisville, Kentucky. Doing my best to say that like they say it here. And
It's
we've
not
got
Louisville.
No, it's definitely not Louisville. We've got a pretty nice top 8 forming here. A reasonable shot that both Todd Anderson and Huey Jensen are in the top 8, though that's not confirmed. They took an intentional draw this round, so we'll see how the tiebreakers work out for them. Brad Nelson and Brian Brownduin. Are we assuming that this was also a draw? Do we know that this was a draw?
The round had just started,
Okay.
and I saw Brad and Brian Bronduin walking around past us. So
pretty confirmed on that one.
yes,
So likely that both of those players are in. Brad is in.
Brad is absolutely in.
Okay.
And Brian has a very strong shot.
Okay. And then at the top of our standings, or at least at the top table, we have a Samuel Black sitting on 37 match points, and he was paired against Justin Harrell. Assumption is that they also took an intentional draw to get into the top 8 as well. So this thing is shaping up to be really sweet top 8. I'm pretty excited to see what happens, and we're going to get a solid player here as well. We've got John Stern versus Alexander John in our feature match area. Alex was able to take game 1. By the time we came to it, remember we had watched the first game from our other match. The game was well in hand for Alex, but we've seen John Stern be able to come out with some really quick starts. He's on the play this time, and he's playing an unconventional deck for this particular tournament. Jake, this isn't a deck that we're not aware of. This deck has been around for a little while, but we haven't seen it yet since Theros come out. It's Gruul aggro.
Yeah, I mean, this was a deck that a few different people played at the Pro Tour. Brad Nelson, for example, played an aggro Gruul deck with an interesting twist that had Flesh Blood. John Stern's list does not. but it's a very straightforward Gruul aggro deck.
It really is.
John's playing a lot of things that make haste creatures. He's playing a lot of actual haste creatures. He's playing 4 Boon Satyrs that can be played on his opponent's end step. His deck is fairly well positioned against the control decks that he expected to see this weekend. Here, Thoughtseize from Alexander. Likely going to be taking the Planeswalker.
So Domri Raid is the #1 target here, but there's a pair of Boon Satyrs. There's also another land and an Elvish Mystic. You see John Stern pull the Domri Raid forward as if to indicate that that is exactly what's going to happen here. Had a great top 8 over in Hong Kong as well. I don't know if you saw this, Jake, but the finals match was Shuhei Nakamura versus Martin Yuza.
I know.
Pretty
you
insane.
couldn't write a better story, right?
No. Shuhei Nakamura ultimately winning that event. It's his 6th GP win. It's his 23rd top 8. He's second all time.
23 top 8s.
Second all time.
Only good enough for second?
27 is the number currently.
Olivier?
Yeah. All right, so there's a Boon Satyr. Now, we do see he runs it out here on his main phase, just playing around counters.
Yeah, just going to play around a counterspell. His opponent won't have access to 4 mana on his next turn anyway, so you're not really worried about getting Supreme Verdicted.
Right.
I mean, you open yourself up to getting Detention Sphere, but from the looks of it, he has another Boon Satyr in his hand, so if his opponent goes ahead and does use a Detention Sphere, then he's actually quite happy
He's actually
that he
fine
got
with
it out of his opponent's hand.
All right, so
it also
plays around
lets him
Dissolve.
see whether or not his opponent does have the Detention Sphere.
Yeah.
So it gives him additional information.
And he's going to kick things off with an attack here. Alexander's at 18, but there it is. The full 3 mana Hero's Downfall. And is he just going to make the same play again here, or is he going to wait? Maybe he's got another play in mind as well. Remember, Boon Satyr also has Bestow. So if he has another threat that he can play here, he can try to save the Boon Satyr to go for a Bestow. Ooh, Burning Earth here, though, on turn 3. We were talking about this earlier in the weekend, Jake, and you were saying it's absolutely fantastic against Esper.
Oh, it's great. You get so many opportunities to resolve it. They're not like a Drago style of control deck. They have to be tapping out repeatedly. They're going to be taking damage from that Burning Earth, and their deck has so few threats that it really just does tons and tons of work.
All right, and so even though right now it looks like Alexander is in a reasonable position with 2 basics on the table and another one in his hand, he already took 2.
So Burning Earth can actually deal damage to the Jace Architect of Thought,
Okay, so
which is an interesting interaction that's going on here.
So when those triggers go on, John can decide wherever he wants to redirect, just like normal damage hitting a player.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, a Pithing Needle here being flipped off the top of Alexander John's library.
Doesn't do a ton here. That's
Doesn't
mainly
do a lot
for,
in this
for a
spot.
Domri Raid, I guess.
Yeah, but the Dobry raids have already been dealt with to Alexander's knowledge. I mean, Alexander, bring in Thoughtseize here. One thing that's actually probably serving John pretty well over the course of the weekend is the players are probably assuming that he is a Gruul Devotion deck.
Absolutely.
Keeping cards like Thoughtseize in against this aggressive deck.
All right, here's 5th mana source here.
And this is where John wants to be playing a dragon.
This is where he wants to slam a dragon, and instead it's an Elvish Mystic and another Elvish Mystic. So, you know, when you hit that turn 1 Elvish Mystic and just curve out into stuff way sooner than you should get it, it's amazing. But, you know, when your 4th turn is made up by playing a couple of Elvish Mystics, it's a much different story.
It's a very, very good card in the 1st or 2nd turn of the game, but as you start getting toward the 4th turn, 5th turn, it becomes a very weak card.
Yeah. We've seen John Stern use it to great effect later in the game against cards like Desecration Demon. You know, we've seen him use it as fodder to keep things tapped down so that he can keep the beatdowns flowing. So, you know, it does have uses later, but in this matchup, maybe not as much.
Definitely not.
All right. So first things first, Jace goes up. Island go. So pretty fortunate here to have the majority of his lands basics here for Alexander John. The deck does run a ton of non-basics.
Yeah, Alexander John's deck, as it seems, only plays 6 basic lands, and he's been able to draw 3 of them in his first 5 lands, which is pretty helpful for him.
All right, so Boone Satyr attempted to bestow, but unfortunately it was syncopated. So kind of brutal there for John Stern. Let's see what he has for this next turn. He really does need to get some pressure going here.
Yes, he does.
Ooh, he's going to run a Pelucranos out there, though. And it resolves, so no dissolve here for Alexander John. And now all of a sudden, John Stern has a real board state. Now, this, if you're in the control player's seat, though, this looks pretty ripe for a Supreme Verdict, does it not?
Oh, it definitely does. And he's going to go fishing for one.
All right, he doesn't have it there. Now, I can't see his hand because he keeps his cards pretty close to the vest, but got to assume he doesn't have one here. Could.
Yeah,
I
don't think he has any cards left.
I mean, he's got 3 or 4 cards in his hand, but just don't know if one of them's Supreme Verdict. See, he's got a Pithy Needle as well as a Sphinx's Revelation, so he's definitely got stuff going on, but...
Oh, I was referring to John Stern.
Right, John Stern's out of cards.
Yeah, he has no gas remaining.
All right, so here's the Detention Sphere, and that's going to take care of Burning Earth. You can see how much respect that card gets.
He's going to need to deal with this Pelucranos, but once he's able to do that, then he's basically home free in this game. Fistful of cards, Sphinx's Revelation in hand.
Something like a
Seems pretty
Doomblade
good
or
for him.
whatever would just...
Yeah, Doomblade looks like it would be good enough to
Yeah.
close this game. He's got multiple Planeswalker activations. Good ones, too.
Yep. All right, and here's a monstrosity for 1. So why would John do that there?
Oh, he's just trying to make the clock such that he can attack and kill Alexander John in 2 turns. Alexander John is at 16, and by monstering the Pelucranos for 1, he's attacking for 8 here. So he's going to be attacking for 8 and then attacking for 8, putting his opponent at lethal, giving him that option of a line. It turns out that whatever he drew has potential to deal more damage to his opponent the next turn.
I see.
So we can probably expect the Boone Satyr as opponent's end step.
All right. And here's an Aetherling with 1 activation up, but it's actually going to be okay. Well, so nothing for John Stern there.
Oh, so it's not a Boone Satyr. Interesting. So he wanted to give himself the option of the 2-turn clock, but he ended up declining.
He decided to take out Jace.
Correct.
Okay, block, bounce. This is going to be 2 damage potentially. And, yeah, unfortunately for John, it's just the 2 damage. Does he have a follow-up play? Oh, man, no dragon, no nothing. He needs to find something. He had an opening there to get in some damage, but couldn't quite find it. Alexander John pump fakes the attack here with his Aetherling. It's pretty common to just attack with it anyway, Jake, because you can just blink it and it has...
Yeah, you can just block with it and attack with it every turn.
Yeah.
It has that kind of vigilance where you need to spend mana to give it vigilance.
Yeah. Yep.
But you can also just dodge all removal and take over a game completely with the card.
He's going to blink first, so we know what that means. He's lining up the mana for it, but we're going to be seeing a Supreme Verdict here.
Definitely.
There it is, Supreme Verdict. Does John Stern have any way? No. Creatures down. And this is looking pretty bad for Team Face-to-Face. John Stern here for his top 8 bid. He's going to follow up with a Pithy Needle. Don't
Likely naming Domri Raid?
Okay. Just to help him, just to throw out the recovery plan of John Stern here.
Yeah, he may also name Xenagos. Not outside of the realm of possibility.
All right, end my turn. Aetherling comes back into play. Draw a card. Things are getting really, really tight here for John Stern. Now, he does have his opponent down to 8, which isn't bad. And there's a Storm Breath Dragon, and it is going to get in there for 4. So now we might have a game here.
Yeah,
John
it looks
Stern looks like he drew the best possible card here. 2-turn clock, and it really forces Alexander to do something. Now, he does, though, have a Sphinx's Revelation in hand, so we know that that clock is not going to stay where it's at now.
Definitely
Things are
not.
still looking pretty good for Alexander John here, I'd imagine.
He has an 8th early in play. He's attacking with it. And he may be at 4 against the dragon, but as long as he has a removal spell in hand, he's going to be okay.
Or he can just fire off his... Is this another dragon? No, it's a Mistcutter Hydra.
Basically a dragon.
Yeah? So that's going to represent lethal as well. How much can he gain from his Sphinx's Revelation? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
4?
3, 4. So that's actually not enough.
Nope.
So he needs a removal spell in hand or a counter, and he can't counter the Mistcutter Hydra. So it's got to be either a way to gain life at instant speed here. And in they go. All right, he's tapping mana. What have you, sir? So he's got something.
Well, he certainly has something.
So if... Well, let's just wait and see what he has.
Yeah, I mean, if he needs 2 removal spells that he can cast, which is pretty impossible with the mana. And how many lands he's had thus
Here's
far
5
already.
mana. Sphinx's Revelation...
For 7. Or for, sorry.
Gets him back up to 6, and if he draws a removal spell, he will still be alive here. But that's it. John Stern finds it. Wow, it really looked like he was behind, but back-to-back rips of the Stormbreath Dragon followed by the Mistcutter Hydra mean that he was able to take that game back.
Yeah, and that's just the thing about an aggressive Gruul strategy against these control decks is you just draw haste creatures off the top and send them into the red zone. And the Esper deck reacts mostly at sorcery speed, so as long as you're jamming creatures and they're attacking the turn they come into play, eventually their life total will be 0, unless they're able to, stabilize with an Elspeth or something like that.
Yeah, great stuff. Needed to see another 4-power haste creature, and he found one.
Perfect card.
It was really the last time that he could find it as well, right? I mean, if he doesn't kill his opponent on that turn, then it's Sphinx's Revelation for 4, go back up to 4, and untap with a full grip of cards.
Yeah, now,
All right.
the one thing that's interesting about this matchup is just how important it is to not overcommit your mana creatures to the board when you're playing a deck like John's. You can try to just move all in and not play around Supreme Verdict, but that's not a winning strategy in the long term.
So we're going to get a game 3 here from Louisville. We're playing some standard here, and we are in the last round of Swiss, which means that this is a winning in for the top 8 of the event. This is a huge match for both players. John Stern barely pulling that last game out, but he did, and now he's going to be on the draw game 3 against Esper Control.
Not exactly where you want to be, but definitely not the worst spot playing a deck that's so well positioned against your opponent. I'd be happy to be on the draw in this matchup. I mean, I'd much rather be on the play, but I don't think it will have a massive effect on the outcome. If you just draw enough lands and enough haste creatures, you can do it.
Looks like John Stern is pretty confident in his sideboard plan, as he's been ready to go for a while. He'll just run in the shuffles. And Alexander John, though, he's made some changes between the last game and this game. So we'll see if he finds, he did get a chance to see a Mistcutter Hydra, for example, and maybe make some adjustments to better set himself up for that.
Yep, post board. Looking at this,
John Alexander definitely taking the Doomblades out of his main deck. Those are going to be quite bad here. I'm sorry.
The Doomblades?
I'm sorry. I just brain farted.
Me. I was
yeah,
like,
no, I brain farted. I'm sorry. I meant to. Wow.
Rich Hagen, update.
Sorry.
Todd Anderson was leading Kiwi Jensen by 1-0 when Kiwi Jensen took the ID.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Sinner has just won his match. He was 0.08% behind Kiwi. And so they will be 8th and 9th. Sam Black played this round for seeding.
Okay. So Sam Black decided to play this round, though he's in the top 8 either way, so he's playing for seeding.
Yeah, so he played
And he won.
beat, Justin Hurrell.
And he beat Justin Hurrell. So Sam Black likely to be the number 1 seed, locked for number 1 seed.
Kiwi ID'd with Todd from 1-0 game. This match that you're watching now is going to game 3.
We're going to game 3 here.
And then Alex Sinner defeated Mike Blair.
All right, Alex Sittner defeats Mike Blair. Now, do we know if that's a win in though?
No.
They're down on 34 points. Yeah.
He will be 8th or 9th.
He will be 8th or 9th.
Opponent match wins.
Okay.
Kiwi and Sinner. So one of those probably 8th or 9th.
Okay, so we're gonna have some tight math down the line here for sure. All right, we're underway though. The ideal start here for John Stern, turn 1, Elvish Mystic.
And now what I meant to say was that Thoughtseize is definitely coming out here for John Alexander.
That I can understand.
Yeah, I mean, in game 2, he might have been under the impression, because his opponent didn't do much, that he was playing against some sort of Gruul Devotion deck. But it seems like he still thinks he's playing against Gruul Devotion.
Is Pithy Needle naming Domri Raid? Okay, Domri Raid is what Pithy Needle named here. So he's protecting against the turn 2 Domri Raid and just start going to town. All right, going to ship a land. And is there a turn 2 play? Well, yes, there is. It's an Elvish Mystic number 2, setting up a potentially explosive next turn. Other Elvish Mystic gets into the red zone. But you talked about this earlier, Jake, and right now, John Stern is potentially playing into a Supreme Verdict here in a lot of ways, right? If he plays a big spell here.
Yeah, I mean, if he casts something like a Pelucranos or a Stormbreath Dragon, and then he passes the turn back to his opponent, then John Alexander might just have a Supreme Verdict, and then that's a 3-for-1. That's a dangerous place for John Stern to put himself.
Is that a Fade into Antiquity I see in John's
It looks
hand?
like it is a Fade into Antiquity.
All right. So he can deal with that Pithy Needle if and when he were to draw. Oh, here we go. Now this is a little more like it, right? We were talking about a Pelucranos maybe or a Stormbreath Dragon, but we have a Xenagos here. And that's going to apply pressure to Alexander John for the duration of this game as long as it's on the table. And it's a great way for John Stern to play around Supreme Verdict, because now he's like, yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, I mean,
2 next turn.
He can just crack back for 2 and play another guy next turn.
So
Quite
great
good.
play here from John Stern, looking to solidify himself potentially in the top 8 of this event with his Xenagos, the Reveler.
Yeah, I like he's throwing up the horns.
He's not actually. If you look, he's actually holding his hand underhand, but if you just glance, it looks like he's throwing up the horns.
Oh, I thought he was throwing up the horns.
I did too. It's funny, but he's not. All right, here is Jace, Architect of Thought, and what are we doing? We're plussing it and saying go. All right, so he's going to stem the bleeding here, taking potentially just 2 damage this turn unless John Stern commits more to the board.
And I don't think John really has to commit any more to the board. He can just he might want to because of the Jace there, but
Jace does encourage him to do so, though it doesn't mean that he must. So let's see what John figures out here. He's taking a look at his hand. You see that he's got a forest there. He has that Fade into Antiquity. So if he wants to take out the Pithy Needle, if he were to draw a Domri Raid, he could do that. If he doesn't have one in hand, there's really no reason to. Fade into Antiquity also can hit Detention Sphere.
definitely true.
And that's a card that he could save it for later. But first that forest, and now what? He also has access to just a ton of mana here thanks to Xenagos. Uh-oh, we're going to get big here. Xenagos just went plus, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. And it's a Mist Cutter Hydra for, I believe, 7 here. It's for 8, so it's actually 9 mana.
That's an impressive turn. Xenagos does absurd things like this, though.
He does.
This is one of the reasons why Mistcutter Hydra works so well with Xenagos the Reveler. You end up with a lot of stupid mana dorks in play, and then you just dump a whole bunch of mana in the Mistcutter Hydra.
Right.
And you attack a blue deck twice, and they die.
Now, he did not attack Jace at all here. He just went to Alexander John's face, bringing him down to 8 here.
Yeah,
So
really forcing his opponent to have the Supreme Verdict or lose.
Yes, have a Supreme Verdict right now, or this game's over. Now, he can also just have cards like Doomblade and such to take out the Mistcutter Hydra, but that's not taking into account whatever it is that John Stern could do the next turn.
Yeah, and I mean, John might go digging for a Supreme Verdict with this Jace Architect of Thought, but even if he finds it, he's still going to find himself taking 2 damage the next turn from Xenagos the Reveler, and perhaps more damage from all of the haste power that is in John Stern's deck. I mean, he has Stormbreath Dragons, he has Mistcutter Hydras. Like, these are... and he finds a Supreme Verdict.
Wow, finds 2 of them, actually.
Wow. I think John Stern is probably going to give him a pile of 2 Supreme Verdicts.
Okay.
I would.
Supreme Verdict, one of the best cards in the deck, but with Xenagos out, it's not that great. I mean...
It's pretty good.
No, I'm just saying that, I mean, it's obviously going to be awesome here. He's gonna get to Wrath the board away and actually not die next turn. So I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just saying that it's not that great against Xenagos because, what are you going to do, right? I mean,
yeah,
you got to use an entire turn to wipe away a Satyr or 2, and then there's just another one coming the next turn anyway? Like, it's not that amazing.
And he can take a couple Satyr hits. The problem is they compound on top of one another.
Yes.
You know, you Wrath away, and then you're tapped out, and there's a Satyr already attacking you, and the next turn there are 2 attacking you, and so on and so forth. It just gets out of hand quickly. So this is the split here from John Stern. I like the split a lot. Gives his opponent a pair of Supreme Verdicts. Going to force his opponent to tap out this turn, and or to tap all of his land except 1 this turn, and presumably to have to tap at least 4 land next turn also.
All right, so very aggressive line here from John Stern, attacking his opponent, leaving him with the Jace. What does he have for a follow-up? We know he's got Xenagos, so right now he can make a 2/2 Satyr. He does. Is this a dragon? It is Stormbreath Dragon.
Wow.
Now he's got an interesting choice. He can bring his opponent, Alexander John, down to 2 life here, or he can bring him down to 6 and take out Jace, Architect of Thought. What do you like
he
here,
could
Jake?
also just... I really like zeroing your Xenagos the Reveler and then killing your opponent. That seems to be my favorite play.
Oh, he hasn't used it yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, he did. He did.
Yeah, he did. Okay. Yeah, I thought he did. All right, so here it is, 6 damage, and he is going to take out Jace with the dragon, going to do 2. That's going to bring Alexander John down to 6. Don't do that to me, Jake.
I'm sorry. I'm
actually
actually...
You don't like that play?
I don't know. I kind of like putting your opponent at 2 when you have a Xenagos in play.
I can see that. All right, so let's see what Alexander John comes up with here. He's under immense pressure from John Stern. Team face-to-face games looking to top 8. He is the Grand Prix Atlantic City champion. That was also standard. He was running a much, much different deck. It was a hexproof deck, but this time...
Yeah, this time he's on this red-green
beats.
aggro deck.
Yep.
I like the red-green aggro deck a lot. It served John Stern really well over the course of this tournament. The reason I'm not sure I like attacking the Jace there is because your opponent already has a massive grip. I don't know how many more cards he really needs. I guess the +1 is actually pretty relevant, though, when your whole plan is revolving around Xenagos, and you know that your opponent can gain life with something like Sphinx's Revelation at any given moment.
Okay. So what ended up happening here is Alexander John just passed a turn back. He has a second Supreme Verdict in hand. We know that. John knows that. But that is not the play that Alexander's going to make here. So he's deciding what he wants to do. So John is now deciding what he wants to do. He has lethal damage on the table. He's going to make a Satyr to kick things off. He's lining up an attack, and he's just going to jam. So here we go. Attack with everybody. Doomblade your dragon. That happens. Now, what about these two satyrs? You have to sacrifice one of them thanks to Devour Flesh.
Yeah, and Alexander John here falling to 4. Again, facing lethal damage the next turn.
Mm-hmm. Xenagos the Reveler doing serious work here.
Yeah, it's such a powerful card that the haste is so relevant
It
on
really
those
is.
2/2 satyrs.
It is. It's easy to overlook, too. But when you see a game play out like this, it's like, wow, that is a huge difference.
In the creature matchups, he really gums up the board quite a bit, protects himself nicely.
Uh-oh, is this going to be a detention sphere? No, it's not. It's Hero's Downfall to take down Xenagos. All right. So Alexander John doing his best to stay alive. Oh, I think that was a Boon Satyr off the top there for John Stern. He could go for it here right now. Azorius Charm, I believe, is the only thing that Alexander John is representing on his side of the table.
There's Devour Flesh too, right?
No, I don't think he has black mana there.
Oh, you're right. He doesn't have access to black mana.
And he's moving in. Boon Satyr, do you have an Azorius Charm?
It looks like his opponent does not.
No, he doesn't. He shows him Supreme Verdict, but it was just
Very
to fake
nice.
him out. And John Stern into the top 8 here with his red-green Beats deck. He's, I believe, the only one at the top tables playing that deck, and he is able to just squeak by in Game 2 and really kind of put a thumping there on Game 3 against Alexander John. So,
Yeah, pretty